Hi, my name's Alina. I'm a grateful recovering addict with 13 months sober today. This is my first YouTube video. It's the highlights of my story or whatever, and it would not fit in a TikTok video, so I figured I'd just make my first YouTube video. Hope you guys enjoy it, and I do just want to point out that this is just like an overview of my story. It goes so much deeper than what I'm about to point out, but these are the things that really stuck out to me that I wanted to share with you guys about my story from addiction to recovery. So here we go. When I was born, I was put into an open adoption and into like it was a messed up situation. My adopted father was pretty abusive to my mom and an alcoholic, but my birth mom didn't know that. My mom divorced him when I was like 3 years old, and she got married to somebody else and then divorced him and then married her third husband. And meanwhile, my dad goes to prison for like cooking meth or something like that. So my mom's third husband was abusive as fuck. He broke my mom's arm. He beat her up on a regular. I would like hide underneath because I lived in the basement. My room was in the basement. And I would like listen through the vents to make sure my mom was okay. And one time he like literally lifted her up and threw her on the ground and shook the whole house, and he broke her arm. I would try to get in between them fighting and like try to punch him and stuff, but I was so little that like I could only reach his belly. The first time I got kicked out of the house, I was 9 years old because my mom went on a business trip, and as soon as she was on the plane, he was like, "Get the fuck out." So I couldn't even come back for 3 days until my mom came back, and the people who I tried to stay at their house didn't believe that I was kicked out, so I literally like slept on like a staircase in front of their door because I didn't know where to go. But that was when I was 9. A couple years later, my mom was still with him, and my big sister ended up moving out because he like choked her and lifted her up off the ground. And then again, I'm trying to get in between and fight. So that was when she was 17, so I was 10, and yeah, that affected me a lot because I wanted her to take me with, but she couldn't because she was so young, and I don't hold that against her, but it just sucks. My mom ended up leaving him when I was like 11 or 12, and then as soon as she left him, we started fighting. Like fist fighting. When I was 14, I started skipping school. I basically dropped out freshman year. I grew up with horses. I was riding horses my whole life, and that was kind of like my outlet for when things were going bad at home. I would go ride my horse. And when I was 14, I showed up at the barn and with bridle in hand, ready to go ride my horse, and my horse was gone. And I was like, "Where's my horse?" They're like, "Oh, your mom stole your horse yesterday." So I like literally went to her place of business and destroyed the whole place. I was like, "Fuck you! I can't believe you fucking did this to me." And I'm like, within a week, I started smoking cigarettes, started smoking weed, started drinking, and like started running away because I fucking hated her at that point. I felt like she put me through so much trauma. That's how I saw it. She put me through so much trauma that like, how could she fucking take away the only thing that mattered to me? I tried to live with my birth mom when I was 14, but I was extremely difficult because I had a lot of anger built up after all the years of abuse, that I endured from the other situation. And so she sent me back to my mom. Of course, right when I went back to my mom, I ran away. Then I went to my dad's house to try to live with my dad, see the abusive piece of shit at the beginning of this. Like, yeah, I go try to live with him, thinking it's gonna be fine, and he would give me like a fifth of fucking vodka a day, and I would get drunk with my fucking stepmom and all that, and I ended up going to foster care because he was violent, and my caseworker always made me go to these visits that he'd never show up to. I think I went to 9 visits 2 hours away from my foster home to go meet up with my dad, and he never showed up. Finally, he went to prison for beating up my stepmom, and flashback to like when I was living with my mother, I have 9 domestic violence charges against my mom because as soon as she would start hitting me and I got big enough to hit her back, I'd hit her back. So foster care, they wanted to put me in a residential treatment center because my dad wasn't getting me back and my mom couldn't get me back. And they put me in a residential treatment center until I turned 18, and I was like, no. So I ran away from foster care at 16 from Scappoose, Oregon to Spokane, Washington, and I ended up getting pregnant at 17 while I was living on the streets in Spokane. I was using meth at the time, but I ended up, like, the day I found out I was pregnant, I quit using meth. And I ended up getting my life together, getting my own place, keeping it for 5 years. Emily is my firstborn, and that was in 2010. After she was born, she was 2 months old, I got my GED. That was 2010. And I started school to be a drug and alcohol counselor at the time, which I did my senior project on meth because I thought I knew everything about it. Because I went back to school. But, so I started, and then my computer got stolen, and that was, like, the end of that. When I was 18, I became a stripper as soon as I could, and I started doing coke, mushrooms, ecstasy, all the party drugs, And that's when I met my second daughter's dad. And meanwhile, I was stripping, I was also working a horse job. My first horse job, which was, like, my dream job. And I worked that off and on for a few years, and then I ended up leaving Abigail, my second daughter's dad, when I lost my apartment at the age of 22. And then my thyroid got really bad. There's my scar. I got half of it taken out because I had 3.5 inches of cysts on it that were growing and pushing on my airway. I was obviously an alcoholic through this whole time. I stopped drinking after my thyroid and started using opiates. And my friends were smoking pills, so I was smoking pills. And it cost me $50 a pill because they were ripping me off. Not like that matters. And I very shortly after that, graduated to heroin, and I started using meth. My older sister, Janae, got our third-party custody agreement for Emily, my oldest, and Joe took custody of Abigail. I got my dream job, and I was 4 months clean. And somebody brought some heroin over, and they were like, you gotta try it, it'll be fun. I'm like, okay. So I did it after being 4 months clean, and then I relapsed, and then it took a couple of weeks, and I lost my house, I lost my job, I lost my truck, my dream fucking job that I worked my whole fucking life towards. I just threw it all away. Because I wanted to get high. I ended up working for some, like, big-time drug dealer. We had a couple trap houses, and we had a couple cars, and I thought I was ballin'. He ended up going to prison. He's still in prison today. That was like 5 years ago. I was homeless in Spokane, for 2 years, and then I ended up moving to Portland, Oregon, because the drugs were cheaper here and it was easier to be homeless on the streets. I was living in tents on the streets for the last 5 years, and off and on in tents. Sometimes there was a tent, sometimes there wasn't. Sometimes there was a sidewalk, sometimes there was some dirt. While I was living on the streets in Portland, I've been held hostage, prostituted myself, which is hard for me to admit, but I just did. I lived with somebody who raped me for 3 months, and I dealt with it because he supplied my habit. I'd literally go to sleep with my clothes on. I didn't want to sleep with this guy. I'd go to sleep with my clothes on, and I'd wake up and we'd both be naked, and I'd be like, what the fuck? And I just, like, ignored it and pretended like it was fine. I would pretend, like, totally withdraw myself when he, like, wanted to do that kind of stuff, and I would just let him do it because he was giving me drugs. That's really hard for me. Sorry, I'm reading a list. I ended up getting with somebody else after that, named K-Dog. His street name's K-Dog, so I don't even care. I'll put his name on blast. It's just a street name. He almost killed me multiple times, broke my rib cage. It was fucked up. He literally, like, one time I remember I was running away from him, and he'd always tackle me from behind, so I have permanent scars to this day on my knees from him. And one time he had a shovel, and I, like, hit the ground, and I was, like, going like this, because he was about to fucking kill me. I knew it. I could see it in his eyes. And, like, as I'm, like, this, I see a camera out of the corner of my eye, so I, like, pointed at the camera, like, look, there's a camera, you can't kill me, and so he looked at the camera, dropped the freaking shovel, and ran away, and I was like, that fucking camera saved my life. I was in and out of jail through my whole addiction, pretty much for petty theft, because, I stole to eat. I think I did 15 days for stealing ice cream once. Like, yeah, mostly all that. So, K-Dog went to jail, and then I met my most recent ex, who was super abusive. He blames it all on me, but I don't claim that. Because I can't. I know that, no woman deserves to be hit, but I felt like maybe I did. One of those times, he's like, get the fuck out, I'm not gonna be with you anymore. So I left the tent, and I went and slept with one of the homeboys, and got pregnant with Sterling. I didn't know the whole time I was pregnant that it wasn't Dale's baby, or that guy's baby. And, so I thought it was, and I told him the whole time it was his, but it wasn't. I gotta laugh about it now. But anyway, so the day I found out I was pregnant, we got into a fight, and he was, like, punching me, but he had a weed pipe in his hand as, like, a fist pack, and as he was punching me, the weed pipe broke, and he stabbed me with the weed pipe, and I had to get staples on my head over here. And, the day I got the staples is the day that I found out I was pregnant at the hospital. Shortly after that, he broke my eye socket. You guys have seen that picture if you've seen my TikTok. I quit heroin 2 weeks after I found out I was pregnant. Cold turkey in a fucking tent. That shit was fucking rough. I mean, I think I took like a Suboxone here and there, like throughout the time, but like once we made it to like 11 days, it was pretty easy. I think I finally slept after 11 days. It took me 11 days of fucking detoxing before I could finally actually sleep. I continued being pregnant, obviously, and being abused and manipulated by him. So when I was 14 weeks, 14 weeks pregnant, we wanted to go to the Dows forever, but we ended up only staying for 10 days because he wanted to come back. And then, of course, what happened? We relapsed on meth. And, so I ended up using for a few more months out of my pregnancy. And then one time we got into a fight. I was like super pregnant. No, right before this. So we came back. We ended up using for a few months. And then randomly he went to jail and I was under the bridge selling drugs, and I allegedly selling drugs. And he was in jail, and then I ended up getting arrested and going to jail in possession of meth, but then they dropped all charges because they didn't have proof. We got into an argument, and I was super pregnant right after we got out of jail, and he was like punching me, forcing me out of the tent, so I left with no shoes on, went to my friends, had her take me to detox, and me and him have been off and on for the last 2 years, and last time I talked to him was like a week ago, but we are not getting back together. Sometimes he'll randomly contact me off of a number, like he makes new numbers and shit, but I'm trying my best to stay away from him. It's so hard to like completely block the narcissist out of your life, but that's what I'm working on right now. It's something I'm struggling with, but ever since I went to detox that day, I've been sober, and I ended up moving to the Dalles and then back to Portland and then into a homeless shelter for 4 months, and I got my car because my dad died, and because it was his car, I got his car. It's the only thing I ever got from him. I got my apartment. I still have my son. I'm 13 months sober today, and I have something to live for now in my life. I feel like my life is worth something. The place that I was when I was using was a really sad place. I was never happy and never smiled, and now I can smile every day, and I'm so grateful every single day to be where I'm at. I'm grateful for everything, including my goddamn toilet, okay? Everybody have a great day and stay sober.